Hey, this is Kimberly, and this is the Mommy Project. Thank you so much for joining me this week. This is episode 83. You guys, I am so excited to share this episode with you we're going to be talking about homeschool. Now, if you are not a homeschool mom or a homeschool family, I realize that moms don't just do the homeschool. Don't think this is not for you. This episode definitely could be for you. If you've got kids, you got one child, you've got multiple children in the house, you are any kind of mom at all whatsoever, I think that you could relate to the things that I have learned. These are not my top 10, but these are 10 things that I have learned in my homeschool year. This is an interactive podcast. The Mommy Project is, and my goal for the Mommy Project is for it to be interactive, meaning that we are engaging in conversation, and you don't have to necessarily engage with me on social media, but engage maybe with yourself in your journal or your reflective time that you might have during the day. If you do that, I'm guilty. I don't always do that. But if you have a friend that maybe you go work out with, or you walk with, or you talk on the phone with, or whatever, or you Voxer, or Marco Polo, or whatever those apps are, that you talk with back and forth. Share some of the things that you have learned in your past year, in the past season that you've been in. What are your top favorite things that you've learned? And I guarantee that will open the doors for more conversations. And so we can always learn from each other. And I just wanted to share with you the 10 things that I have learned in my first year as a homeschool mom. Now, the first thing that I want you to know is that I'm coming into the homeschool arena or community, if you will, with the background that I was a teacher at a local university here in where I live, and I taught writing and composition and rhetoric to 18 to 20-ish year olds. And so I was teaching like the freshman and the sophomore level classes. And so that's my background. So it's heavy on the literature, it's heavy on the writing and analysis and all that. And I also have been working, from the time I had my first child until now. This baby that I'm carrying right now will be the first child that I've actually stayed home with. So that will be probably, I'll let you know how that goes. But anyway, so that's my background, that I'm coming into the homeschool world with that background. I'm also approaching this with a little bit of research and a lot of dreams. And I mean a lot of dreams and a little bit of research. So I'm approaching my new phase of living and my new mothering and all that kind of stuff. I'm approaching it with a lot of ideals. And I also am tiptoeing into it. I've got a first grader. She's 6 years old. And then my other two, I wasn't even attempting. I know that a lot of moms out there, they do their they do their own preschool, and they start out with their 3-year-old or 2-year-old or whatever. That's not me. I'm just like, listen, I'm just going to do homeschool for one child, and the other two can play as much as they want to, and we'll get to them next year. And so again, just tiptoeing into it. I wasn't in a co-op. I don't even really know much about co-op. And so a complete and utter newcomer to this homeschool thing. So 10 things that I learned. Number 1, and this is not in any particular order whatsoever. This is just, it's just what I wrote down in my journal. So number 1, lower expectations. I had to lower the poo out of my expectations. I last year, I had been thinking about it, and I'd been tossing this idea out to my husband for 2 years. Just feeling him out, feeling myself out, just being like, I don't know if I want to do this really. I don't know if I can handle it. But anyway, last summer, I just got really, really serious about the fact that I felt like I was losing a lot of time with my children. Maybe it was because 2018 was such an intense year, and I talked about that in last week's episode. But I also did not handle my oldest going to kindergarten as well as I thought I would. I mean, I was the cliche mother in the parking lot, losing my mind, bawling my eyes out before I had to go to work when I dropped my child off. And then I was also the mom who shed tears when I watched her walk down the aisle to get her little kindergarten diploma. I mean, my husband's dry, his eyes are super dry, and I'm just like, just losing it. And I had realized I'm never getting that time back, ever. Her first year, her second year, I mean, none of that am I ever getting that back. And I'm not saying that to whatever you need to do for your family, believe me, I'm all for it. I mean, whatever it is. But for me, I guess I just felt panicked with the new season that we were approaching. A new grown-up, big kid going to a big school. And so that weighed on me a lot throughout her kindergarten year, and she did great. I loved the school that she went to. It was a public school. I went to a public school. That's another thing that you might want to know. Me and my husband both, we went to public schools. I mean, I did a little bit of private, but I have nothing against public schools. I liked it. I mean, I thought that I got a pretty good education in the public school system, and much more than in the private. I will say that. So anyway, I'm not coming into this thinking that one type of school is bad and one type of school is worse or something. But anyway, I was losing that time. That's what I was freaking out about. And so when we went through her kindergarten year, and it was great, I started to kind of get serious about, I need this door to be closing, and I need to just step out in a leap of faith and do the homeschool thing. Okay, well, that's all good and dandy, and you have these dreams, and you see on Instagram all these mamas doing these science projects and these crafts and all the reading they're doing, and history. I mean, just, oh, it looks great. It's glorious. They go on nature walks. I don't even know what a nature walk is, And so I'm thinking in my head that me and Evie are going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do this, and we're going to have so much fun doing it. And it's just going to be, rainbows and unicorns and sparkles all day long. And I realize those are dreams, but that was actually what I thought it would be like, because I had a plan. I was going to send the boys to their little preschool program 2 days a week. And on those 2 days, me and Evie were going to hit the major subjects very hard. We're going to do math, and we're going to do reading and writing. And the other days, we're going to do nature walks and science projects and history and art and on and on and on. That's what we're going to do. Well, that didn't work out that way. My 2 boys, I ended up having to pull them out of their program because they kept getting so sick, especially my middle child, who tends to struggle. I mean, he doesn't recover from like the flu as fast as the other 2. And by the time, this was about Christmas, so me and Evie were rocking and rolling on the math and the reading, especially the math and the reading and the science. And we had a rhythm that we were getting into, and we enjoyed it. And then when Christmas hit, it was like the flu and the strep throat, all that kind of happened. I mean, it was like all of December, all of January, I was trying to get my boys well, which also they gave, my oldest child, whatever they brought home. And eventually I had to get on a new rhythm, a new schedule. That's the word I'm looking for. And so by the time I got them on a new schedule, I was like, well, I don't want to go back to this 2-day-a-week thing where they come home like little monsters because they're not getting a nap and they're not really eating very well and they're not really getting to go outside. I mean, it just wasn't working out. And so my expectations of how things were going to go completely had to be changed. And that leads me to the next thing is I realized I'm not good at the arts and crafts and the science projects, and like I'm really, really not good at those. First of all, it takes a lot of patience to do a science experiment when you also have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old who want to help. And I don't want to exclude them. I mean, how do you exclude 2 little kids from the, I mean, that's something that I'm learning how to do. I don't know how to manage a hands-on curriculum with one child that's older and then also see to the little ones and make sure they're not getting neglected or terrorizing the house and breaking something because they're not getting enough attention. And so it's a big juggling act. That's what I was starting to figure out. And the first thing that goes when I have to juggle a lot of things is the creative things, like that take a lot of materials, that take a lot of planning, that make a lot of mess. And so that was the first thing that went. And I mean, I would see these awesome science programs on Instagram or online, and I was just like, I'm not doing that. And so that leads me to number 3, which is I had to stop evaluating my homeschool day and the way that we did our daily routine, the curriculum that we were using, the subjects that we were covering. I had to stop evaluating how I was doing in comparison to other mamas. Number 1, I'm a first timer, right? And so I'm learning as I go. Number 2, I might not have the same personality or skill set as they do. And so actually through talking to a few other mamas, they were like, well, I might be really good at the science and the math, but I'm not good at the literature and the reading. And so that's where co-op, things like that really come into play, because just because you're not really strong in this, you could find someone that could kind of help you balance that out. And so anyway, I had to really stop evaluating how my homeschool day or how my homeschool week or where we were at on the schedule in comparison to what other mamas are doing or what other curriculums they're doing. And I realize curriculum is a whole topic in itself, and we're not going to talk about that today, but that's something that I think a lot of us can relate to, is that when we see what other mamas are doing with their children or how their children are meeting certain milestones, or they have certain talents, or they're in certain programs, or they have all these friends or whatever, we start to compare. And we usually either anytime that we're comparing, we're either falsely coming, we're up to above par and we're at a false kind of higher standard, on a pedestal that's really wobbly, or we are lowering ourselves and kind of being really critical of ourselves. And either one is not a true perspective. It's not a true narrative of how we're doing. And so I think that's something that I had to pay attention to. On top of that, I had to pay attention to my what I was seeing people post about what they're reading and the books that they bought and the supplies they have, because my pocketbook could not handle it. I mean, I can't tell you how many books that I have bought because I've seen it recommended on Instagram. And sometimes my kids like them, but most time I'm like, I could have saved that money. That was a stupid purchase. And so being aware of that really is important. All right, that leads me to, I forget what number I'm on, 4 maybe? I don't know. But that leads me to the next thing, which is, let's see. Oh, yeah. Just because the research says, I'm looking at my notes. If you're watching this, this is my notes. Just because the research says that everything, and I've actually read this, I forget who says this, some education philosopher, but just because the research or experts say that everything worth doing is worth doing in the morning, just because they say that doesn't mean you have to do it. I mean, I'm just going to tell you that right now. You can, if you are the type of person that needs extra sleep, or you've got kids that are better, they're more energized, say around 10:30 or after lunch or whatever it might be. If you're more of an afternoon family, go with that. And who cares what the experts say? I mean, they might be right on some things, but they're not right on everything. They don't know you, and they don't know your personal rhythm of life. And so I had to kind of, and maybe that's a little bit of the rebel in me, because I do agree. I mean, if you need to tackle a really hard assignment, or, I mean, I was talking about this last week, when I would have a very long run. Like I remember in my Ironman training program, my longest run that I had to do was a 20-miler. And let me tell you, that freaked me out. I was dreading that 20-mile run for a while because I knew it was coming. And I did it in the morning. Like I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, or probably 3:30 to eat a little bit of something, and then started my run at 4:05 so that I could just get it done and not dread it the whole rest of the day. And so in that aspect, I understand where they're coming from. But if it's a normal day where you're just doing your normal routine, your normal school day, you don't always have to start at 7:30 or 8. If you do that, well, I mean, I might as well just take my kids to school, right? And so I enjoyed letting myself have that freedom of, I can get up, we can still be in our pajamas, I can still have my glasses on and just bad hair and make them pancakes and sit down and have some kind of reading, whether it was Bible and the Bible program that we were doing, or if it was poetry or even science that I wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way, or a story, or whatever I was feeling. That was important. Like it was me, like, because I'm doing a lot of the reading, I need to be able to like it. And so I wasn't going to pick up a book that I was dragging my feet about. I was going to pick up something that would energize me as well. And so, and again, I'm a newcomer at this, but, and everybody's different. You might have your, what a lot of people term as a morning basket or whatever. And I'm not knocking those terms. I'm starting to learn, what they are, but, you have your morning routine, and if it's working for you, then stick with it. If your morning routine starts at 9 a.m., then go with it. If you are more of an early bird and it starts at 6:30, go with that. But just because the experts say that you need to do this doesn't mean you have to do it. That's my point. Next thing that I wanted to share, and I'm guessing this is number 5 or 6, I don't know, is history can be taught better. I like history. I grew to like history through the literature. Actually, I didn't have super awesome history teachers growing up, and but I did in college. And so, but as a literature major and really studying that and seeing how history and literature really go hand in hand with each other, that's when I really began to have a love for history, and the context and the, who wrote it and who's putting their spin on it, and also starting to really kind of analyze it. Well, all that to say that the history portion of our homeschool year was a disaster. Like, I could not figure out how to explain ancient history to a 6-year-old in a way that was interesting. I mean, she's, or to explain time, like the concept of time. We're still struggling with that. And so sometimes the curriculum that you love, you might love some of it and then really just not jive with the rest of it. And I think that's kind of what happened with us. Is it's not that it was bad. It's just I just could not figure out how to teach it. And so we're going to try a new history program this year that's going to be using a lot more picture books and a lot of reflective questions, a lot of really thought-provoking questions that they have laid out for you. You don't have to think about them. And I'm going to try that and see how it works. But yeah, it was an epic fail when it came to history, my history lessons. So that was new. And on top of that, me being a writing teacher, a composition, rhetoric, literature, and all this, my daughter, she really loved reading and she really loved math, but she would absolutely drag her feet when it came to writing. Let's write a descriptive essay on, this picture they would give us like a visual prompt or a grocery list, or let's write some dialogue here. And she would just, please don't make me. She would cry or she'd whine or whatever. And I was like, how in the world am I supposed to be so, this is what I've been teaching all these years, and I cannot seem to connect this subject that I know how to teach or know how to do to my daughter. And so with that, and I realized writing is abstract. It's a lot more abstract thinking than say, handwriting or copying a poem or even math. I mean, it's just, math is 2 + 2 is always going to equal 4. Whereas writing is a lot more critical thinking, and it's a different skill set. And so for me, what I did is I just took a step back. I'm like, all right, if we're going to be hitting a wall every single time, it's not that we didn't do it at all. It's just I slowed the pace down incredibly because I don't want to frustrate my student. I don't want to frustrate my little learner, and so, and what I mean by frustrate is hit that learning threshold where no progress is being had. And so that's, so anyway, that's one of the things that I've learned is that apparently I'm not great at teaching writing to my 6-year-old. And surprise. And so next thing is that a story time and sometimes a nap and a good snack is all you need to turn around a bad day. And we have had some bad days. Not necessarily the homeschool thing, but it was the stay-at-home mom, being with them all the time. Just, it takes so much energy out of you that I remember there were some days, and not all of them, but some days where I'm like, I'm going to kill him. This is not for me. This was a mistake. I should not have signed up for this. I should not have quit my job. I mean, I'm going through all the reasons why I am an epic failure at the homeschool thing and the stay-at-home mom thing. And then, I mean, it's going nuts. I'm losing my mind. They're crying. They're having meltdowns. They're in a bad mood. They're fussing, whatever. We're not getting enough done. My productivity nature is just really kicking in, and I'm frustrated because we haven't done this, and this. And it's in those moments that I'm like, all right, everybody come sit down on the floor. Grab me a book, or I'll grab a book usually. I don't ask. I just tell them to sit down. They have to be quiet, or I'll pop some popcorn or some kind of snack. Some kind of food is going to be had so that they will have their mouths full so that they don't have to ask questions or interrupt. And then I start to read a story. And it's not even that it calms them down. It calms me down. And I have started to realize, and I mean, this is common sense, but I've started to realize that if I'm calm, they start to calm down. So I set the tone of the home environment. And if I am highly frustrated, they're going to be highly frustrated. If I'm highly emotional that day, they're going to tend to be more whiny or, more amped up. So that is a huge responsibility, but as parents, that is part of our job, and that's part of maturing as a parent, is understanding that and working through those highs and lows. And so for me, what has turned around numerous bad days, or what I have thought of as a bad day, is some story time, some good snuggles in the bed, taking a nap. Most of the time, our bad attitudes can be resolved by just taking a nap because we're so tired. And just that can totally reset the tone of the day. So, maybe that's helpful for you. Maybe you already do that and you're like nodding your head and you're like, yeah, girl, I understand what you're saying. And so, that's something that I've learned. Whatever number I'm on, I forgot. Number 8 maybe is just holding the thought of maybe I should do this and maybe I should do that. I have bought, true confession, I have bought a nature study curriculum. I have bought an Advent study curriculum. This was not a part of the curriculum that I had already, we'd already purchased. The academic year, curriculum. No, this was extra. Let's see. A curriculum that has to do with teaching about Lent and Passover. Several books that I haven't yet read. All because I'm like pulled. Again, this goes back to social media and evaluating and not letting what you see influence you in what you're already doing. Like, I mean, if you see something, you're like, oh, that's a good idea. Have science on Thursday and just be done with it. That's Thursdays or science day. Great. But if it's causing you to constantly buy more and purchase more because the more you have, the better you'll be. And then you get tired and you're kind of stuck in this cycle of, if I change this, or if I get better at this, or I buy more of this, then I'll be better and they'll learn more and they'll be more excited. It doesn't really work that way. And so kind of just take a minute and take a breather, give yourself a moment to realize that you don't always need more to do what you're doing really well, if that makes sense. Sometimes what you have is just perfect and it's just enough with the kids that you have and the ages that you're doing, the ages that you have, the season of life, your personality, their personality. Go with that. Let's see. Number 8. I'm just going to call it number 8. I don't know what number it is, but I think it's number 8. Take a break. Whenever my kids started getting sick in January, we had to take some time off. And I mean time like I was going to take all Christmas off and do a lot of Christmas books and read a lot of Christmas novels to them and just have lots of Christmassy Christmas stuff. And heck, I mean, true confession, also, by the time that we were at Christmas, I was over it. I was like, I'm done with Christmas. I'm done. I don't want to read one more story about Santa Claus or mistletoe or dolls in the windows or whatever. And then we got the flu and the strep throat And then that kid passed it to this kid, and this kid passed it to this kid. And so we had to end up taking a lot of January off too, because I was also dealing with morning sickness, which was super fun. And so, with that being said, we had gotten behind. Well, so when we started back in like the last week of January, we didn't have any break, no spring break, no nothing, from January all the way to the middle of May. And that was not the best thing, I think, because I was getting really tired. I think she was getting a little bit tired, especially the last 2 weeks of May. But again, I was letting that curriculum, that checklist drive me. I was also knowing that I'm about to go through my 3rd trimester in the summer, and I want us to have a lot of fun because, this will be the last time that we'll be a family with just 3 kids in the house. There'll be number 4 coming, and, I wanted all those things, and they're all great things, but pushing your child and pushing yourself to, and not taking a break is probably not the best and wisest way to approach your homeschool life. So I learned that. I mean, you have to try it to learn it, right? So take a break. I had to learn this is number 9. I had to learn what couch time and seat time was. I mean, what? I don't know what those things are. And again, I'm not coming from an educational background. I'm coming from teaching college adults with a literature background. I didn't go through, having a teaching license. So that might be a term that a lot of elementary and junior high and high school teachers understand. And I was just like, okay, what the heck is that? And anyway, teaching the way I understand it. Couch time is like story time or subjects that you can cover with a whole variety of ages of children. So if you've got multiple kids in the house and one is 10 and one is 7, you can pick subjects that both can learn regardless of the level that they're at or regardless of the age. So subjects like that would be history or science or art, music, a lot of the liberal arts, really. Any kind of stories, literature, any of that. Seat time or table time or whatever, however you hear it, ballied about in the homeschool world, is their individual level. So, if like, for example, my daughter is working on her addition and subtraction at the 1st grade level, and my son, who would be in preschool, he needs to trace his ABCs or his name and his numbers and his address or whatever. He would be doing his little worksheets and she would be doing her little worksheets, and so they could, but it's individual based. So I had to learn that. I don't know, you might already know that and be like, duh, that's, stupid. You already know that. But I didn't. I mean, again, I'm learning all these new lingo and new words and stuff. So, and then the very last thing that I want to leave you guys with is some must reads if you are wanting to increase your reading time with your children. So let's say you are a working mom or you're a summer mom, meaning you work all throughout the year, but you've got kids that are home in the summer and you were like, what am I supposed to be doing with all these kids and all this time? Or you're new to the homeschool world, or you've been doing it for a while, but you don't know about these books. There's 2 that I would really highly recommend. The first one, and if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to just show you really quick what this book is. It's called Teaching from Rest by Sarah Mackenzie. And again, I know I've talked about her probably 3 episodes in a row. I am a big fan, but this book, legit. I mean, it's for real. So good. It's also pretty thin, so you can read it, especially if you have if you're like me, you don't have a lot of time to read or a lot of energy to read, or you're just burnt out on reading, but you still want answers, or you're still looking at your homeschool year, the structure of your day, and you're just like, this is not working. I don't really know what this is, but this is not working for me. I need some help. The Teaching from Rest book is so good, and it's very practical, and it talks about how to maybe structure your day in blocks or increments. It talks about how you really do need to take breaks and what that would look like. I mean, and she's got a podcast, the Read Aloud Revival. She's got, I think, 6 kids, some teenagers, some little kids. So she knows what it means to juggle a lot of things at the same time. And so anyway, that's one of the must reads. And then the second one, also written by her, is the Read Aloud Revival Family. That book is just basically a reader's manifesto, a children's lit manifesto, but with lots of book recommendations, especially at the end, based on the ages of your kids. And she gives you lots of ideas of how to read to a 2-year-old versus a 10-year-old, what you can do to get them to listen, to focus, some questions that you might could ask them to get them thinking a little bit deeper. And I'll say this, that I have not had any experience where if she's recommended a book, hands down, my kids like it. Not once have I had an experience where I have read them a book that she or her team has recommended, and my kids are like, it's okay. But, so anyway, I highly recommend it. And again, I read both of these books before I was a homeschool mom. I mean, 2 years into it, because, and this is something that I think that especially if you're in the education world or you're in any kind of academic world, a lot of things that she would recommend you do with your kids to get them to listen, to be a little bit more attentive, or to get them engaged in the subject. I actually did a lot of those things in my classroom when I was teaching with my 18 to 20-year-olds. And let me tell you, it really worked. And it really worked. And so I've been a big fan of hers way before I got on the homeschool team, the bandwagon. So it's not just for that. Anyway, those are 2 recommendations that I would love for you to check out, and let me know what you think about it. Maybe you've read it and you have further reads that you would recommend, that you absolutely love, that you think are a must for the homeschool mom or the homeschool parent to be inspired. Because let's face it, being home, being a parent, being a mom, it can be a grind some days. I mean, it's a joy, it's a big responsibility, but it takes a lot of energy. And there are many days where I'm like, I just don't feel like doing anything today. I just want them to sit and watch some TV, or we'll just go outside or whatever, because I am so unbelievably exhausted. But that's not really how I want us to spend our days, because our days are, we don't have a lot of days. We are not ever going to get this day back. We're not going to get this time back with them. And so I want to be intentional. And so keeping that pace up, being that intentional parent, requires inspiration and motivation and, new ideas, to kind of kickstart that or to help you get back on track. And so those 2 books are really, really awesome. I would love to hear from you. If you're watching this, thank you so much for watching. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or Podbeam or Google Play or wherever you're listening to this, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Also, I would love to hear from you. Give me a review. Tell me how you're liking the podcast so far. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button, please. That would be awesome. You can find all these episodes on the Mommy Project, or of the Mommy Project at my website. I can't even talk. And it's themommypro.com. That's my website. And you can find me on Instagram at themommypro. I would love to hear from you. I would love to know what you learned in your homeschool year. So that's the question I'm going to ask you is, what have you learned this past year that you would love to pass on? Or maybe, what did you do your first year of homeschool that you're like, yeah, that was dumb? I would love to hear that as well. So look back at your year and let me know what you think. If you've read these 2 books that I recommended, the other one I think is right here. You can see that I've, it's pretty worn. I'm showing it to people that are watching on YouTube, but it's really so good. And let me know what you think. And so I hope you guys have an awesome week. You're doing so good, mamas. I want you to know that. And check me out on Instagram. Let me know how it's going. All right. Bye.